Welcome to Cozy Junk Studio's first video of 2025. Let's go ahead and jump into project number 1, but don't let it fool you. There's plenty of surprises coming up in this video. Alright, we're going to go ahead and start out with this little canister set. Now this is like a vintage 70s avocado color, and although I love it, the outer one, the one that doesn't sit down in, is just beat all to pieces. You can see it right here. And I really didn't want to paint it because where it's so slick, I felt like it might have needed a good spray paint, and you know, I don't go outside and spray paint or anything like that, so I thought we would cover this. And I wanted to use some things in this video that everybody might have. Now grab some kind of paper you have in your stash, music paper, anything like that. I'm going to use these vintage Reno, Nevada, sort of like a postcard gift package maybe, and they're very thin, so these are going to be super easy. And I thought, you know, how cool would it be if someone could buy a set of canisters that no one else has with a state that's pretty cool on it. So I grabbed all of my Reno, Nevada ones out. I'm gonna put them sort of catty corner all over these, just starting with the ones that are the most basic, using my glue stick, because on a rounded surface, glue stick is perfect. I use the Michael's Recollection brand glue stick. You can definitely use Mod Podge for this. We will be sealing this with Mod Podge, but this is gonna look so cool. I can't wait for y'all to see it. And we're gonna do something a little different on the outside once we get to that. But I'm just covering all these up, and I do cut off some of the bottoms and flipping them around just to cover the little thin gaps that's left open. Even though they're upside down, you're not going to notice that. So definitely use that extra that you cut off to fill in little places. Now here's kind of what we have so far, and what I'm going to do is take the covers that held these cards and then some of the cards themselves and get some of those really awesome signage off of there that almost looks kind of like pop art, and just cut them down into smaller squares without the white around them, and place those sporadically around the can using that gorgeous font. And then of course it says, you know, Reno, Nevada. It kind of lets people know, hey, this is a Reno, Nevada canister set. So I think this would be so cool, especially if you use something like Disney postcards or even just Disney magazine, something like that, to customize your canisters. All right, we're going to go ahead and just take this little sanding and sand downward, getting all those rough edges off where I cut. And once we finish this, I'm going to go around each of those edges with this black StazOn ink, because once we Mod Podge, we don't want the ink to smear, and this StazOn does exactly what it says. It stays right there and does not reactivate with the Mod Podge. The reason I used black is because the inside of the canister is black, and it just kind of finished that edge off. You could definitely use a different color if you wanted to use red or teal, some other colors that's in your artwork. Absolutely do that. With the Mod Podge, I'm going to put a not real wet coat on. I mean, I'm definitely getting a good coat on there, but I don't want to drench it. I'm going to put 3 very light coats, and the reason I'm doing that is I don't want my papers to bubble, so I'm going to start out with a light, just getting it all covered very lightly, let that dry, and then go back with a thicker coat, because now it's sealed, it's not going to bubble. And I do that about 3 times just because these are going to be held and for use. If not, then I probably wouldn't put that many coats. 1 coat would be fine. I left the lids that gorgeous black. I left the bottom that gorgeous avocado green because they're going to get scratched and moved around, so no need to paint that. What is your idea to cover some canisters with? Let me know in the comments below. Project number 2, this next project, oh my goodness, it brings back old school memories. I thought we would cover some face plates for electrical outlets, switches that I just had lying around. So I grabbed just all kinds of examples to show you all what you could use on these. Old wrapping paper, napkins, book pages. I'm going to be doing a couple really special things with mine. And the first one we're going to start out with is I'm going to turn this light switch cover or switch cover into a Monopoly game. I'm going to use the same process, use this Recollections glue stick, and I'm going to start out just with some Monopoly money because it's very lightweight. It's going to be easy to decoupage on here, and you can put different colors as your base. So that'll give it a lot of brightness for the pieces that we're going to put on top. Now some of the sides you might need to clamp down as we go along, but I'm not going to show you every single piece. We've kind of done the process of the glue, how it works, and then how the Mod Podge works on top. So I chose 3 different colors for my base: pink, mint, and blue. Now when my sons were little, you know, one of them's 29 and one of them's 30, they didn't have things that was matching like they do nowadays. One of my sons wanted a room that had hot rods and like flame curtains, so I did all that. I made all the curtains. I did find the fabric, but they didn't make that stuff for you just to go and purchase. Mostly it was Disney stuff. You could buy that kind of stuff, but nothing other than Disney. So I made their light switch covers as well, and one of their rooms, one had the flames and the hot rod, and then the other one wanted the planets and like stars, like galaxy. So I made his room like that, and then the light switch plate covers to go on their lights as they came in the room. So this kind of reminded me of that, and I was like, oh, I want to make some of those, but I'm going to throw these in my booth. I'm making quite a few, kind of like assembly style. So I do cut down some of the pieces just a little bit. I mean, they still look like they're original, but they're just smaller so that we can fit more of them on top of the money that's already on the light switch. Now, I will tell you, Dollar Tree has a Monopoly Go color forms game, and it comes with really tiny money and tiny pieces and stickers, and we're going to be using some of those because I have a couple of those games and I love how they're just tiny for $1.25. I have older Monopoly parts and pieces, newer, like from the 90s is considered newer, and then I have some from the 70s, and then of course some of the Dollar Tree, and the difference is crazy. They're just made so much different. Some of the colors are brighter, some of the colors, things are thicker. Okay, so now I've got those pieces glued down, the ones I've chosen, and one is an older card, one's a newer chance card, and now I'm using that same glue and putting some of these, they're called color forms on, but they don't really stick. They're like kind of like plastic, but the glue's holding them really well, and then we'll Mod Podge on top, so don't worry about that. Once I get all these pieces the way that I want, I am going to have to take a knife and like a pokey tool and, you know, cut out the little switch hole and then the little screw holes, which is not a big deal, especially after they're Mod Podged. They become really hard, so that stuff's super easy to cut. I do go ahead and take one of the little greenhouses and use some E6000 and a tiny die that I have instead of the ones. I don't know if this dice came with the Dollar Tree one or I just had it in my stash, but I add those just as little 3D options. I love this. This was so much fun to make. I can't wait to hear what you guys think about this. You'll have to let me know. And you can do this with all kinds of games like Sorry, even kids game, other kids games, card games, you name it. Alright, so I'm putting a generous amount of the Mod Podge on here this time because these are really hard cards. The likelihood of bubbling is slim, so I do put at least 2 coats. I'll put one and let it dry and another and let it dry, and I make sure I get plenty of that Mod Podge around that dice and around that little house. The photos will be all together at the end. We're going to pop on over to the next one. I so enjoyed this one as well. By the way, the edges on the Monopoly one I cut with the scissors and then used my sandpaper to sand those edges off for a smooth finish. And I did add a little bit of gold rub and buff around some of those edges. You'll see in the photos. Now this one I wanted to do just stamps because, you know, think about it. I have a vintage vendor's booth, sort of vintage, and stamps is a big part of journaling life, junk journaling life, vintage collectors. So I grabbed out this book from Tim Holtz. It's got every color stamp just about you could think in it. Now you could definitely use real stamps on here, like vintage stamps. You can buy them in bulk on Etsy, eBay. Also, Hobby Lobby used to have bags of them you could get as well, but this was the only ones I had, and it's more about the style versus actual real vintage stamps. I'm just using what I had. I decided because these are a little thick and it seems like when I put the glue on, the glue stick, that they just didn't tack real quick. So I grabbed my art glitter glue and it worked much better. And as you can see, I've already placed all my stamps on there. I just kind of made contrasting colors. I would put like a light and then a dark and then a dark and then a light, and just up at the top I would have a darker and at the bottom, just harmony in the colors. Now I'm just kind of going around all the edges and making sure they're pretty smooth. I do end up cutting all of this off and sanding and using a little bit of gold rub and buff around those edges, and I love how this one turned out. We also used 2 coats of Mod Podge on this one. The last one I'm showing you on camera is, it's a faceplate for like if you have an old phone line you've taken out or just something that doesn't need an outlet, but it has a box there. They make plates to cover those, and we just happen to have an extra one, and my husband's like, oh yeah, people use them all the time, and I was like, okay. So I grabbed just this red print from Recycled. I think this is from her catalog, Decoupage catalog paper, and it had this small print, and then it also had the cowgirl that I'm getting ready to put on top of this. Now the cowgirl, I just kind of tore around it because I didn't want those edges, and I just used my glue stick, and then of course did a couple coats of decoupage, sanded around the edges, and I think I used a little bit of gold rub and buff on this one too, and this one was really easy. Let me know, have you ever done these in the past? And if not, are you thinking about doing them now? Project number 3, which technically, goodness, I can't talk, should be 6, 7, and 8. But because I'm doing multiples, I'm just counting them as 1, 2, and now 3. 3 heads are better than 1. Okay, I've had so many requests about doing a video on mannequin heads, and I've touched on it a little bit in the past, but it's been a while. So I thought we would do 3 today. I have gotten out stacks of my decoupage paper that have been gone through, scraps, some of my transfer scraps, napkins, anything. Grab your stuff. You can use music paper, book pages, all kinds of stuff, scrapbook paper. I'm going to start out with putting a base on this first mannequin. Now the mannequin heads that sell the best in my booth are definitely the darker style, so we're at least going to do one with a dark base, meaning I'm just going to put all kinds of paper on it that is dark. You're not going to be too worried about this part because a lot of this is going to get covered up. You are going to have wrinkles, you are going to have tears, there's going to be imperfections, but I promise you when you finish with this, you're not going to see it, and it's not going to make a difference because that is the beauty of these. They are handmade and people love them. They sell every time I put them in my booth. I'm down to my last 3 and we're going to do them today. I always start out with Mod Podge, my Mr. spray bottle, and a paintbrush. I put a lot of Mod Podge on the foam head and then lay my paper down. I usually spray it before I put it on there. Sometimes I forget, but it's okay. You don't have to spray it if you don't want to. It just helps the paper to form around the head better. Now I'm using this little wood thing I found at a junk store. I think it held like tissue paper rolls, but I'm not sure. It works wonders though, helping me hold this mannequin head. Once I get all of this sort of dark color as a base all the way around, I'm just gonna keep going with these. I've got the numbers paper, and then the other one is like piano keys. I'm just gonna keep doing that until I get this thing completely covered, and then I'm gonna let that dry. You will notice I use the tip of my paintbrush and the handle to help smooth out wrinkles. I mean, you're gonna have wrinkles, but if there's some really large ones, I will use my paintbrush to smooth those out. Now there is a divot in the back of these forms all the time, and I don't ever worry about those. I just put the paper over it. No one ever says anything about that back little divot. It's from where they form the head. Also, when you're putting the paper over your eye, pay real close attention to smoothing it out as good as possible, which I tend to cover my eyes, and I'll show you that coming up pretty soon. Now that the base of our mannequin head is dry, all that paper, now comes the fun part. I've gotten all these scraps out, and we're going to use some of the transfers, and I decided on this one we would do something a little bit fun. We're grabbing out some of this old Prima Sparks paint that I have, and I'm making almost like butterfly wings or angel wings coming off of the eyes up into the hairline. Just mixing some of these greens. Once I let those dry, I will go in and do some of the dark green as striping and use some gold rub and buff and make striping too. It turns out looking so cool. Now I've kind of filled in the nose with that gold rub and buff. That's what I'm using right now. I'm just using a paintbrush. You can use your fingers, but a paintbrush is kind of what I needed to give me the tips that I wanted as I swooped the paintbrush up. I love to put gold on their lips, but you can use any color you want, even little jewels. We do end up putting a little sparkle on these a little later on. The biggest attention I pay to these is the face. The sides, the top, and the back, really you can just add a lot of different overlays and transfers and papers and it looks great. But the face, I love to put things on the eyes. I've just started out with that gold circle, which I think it's actually a fake wax seal. I put that moth I've had in my stash forever, and I found these feathers, and I love to have things shooting up off of the eyelids, kind of like cat eyes, but using feathers or flowers or climbing vines. It's so much fun. So we're going to use these feathers, and we're going to go back and do something to this eye as well with this clock. Usually I only cover one eye, but I actually covered two eyes on two of the mannequins in this video, and it was so much fun. I can't wait for you all to try these mannequins. They are actually very addictive. So I'm just showing you here some of the things I've put on it, and once I got everything on, I do go ahead and give my mannequin a good coat of Mod Podge, and then I find a gorgeous base to put on it. I'm using this $3 wood Target candle holder that I thrifted with some E6000 and hot glue. I love to trim out the bottoms of these, especially if there's a little gap, so I tend to use twine, fabric, ribbon, and pom-poms. I actually went back and added a lot more pieces to this mannequin head, as you can see now, because I went very maximalist on the other two coming up. I can't wait for y'all to see them, and they are so different. Okay, this next one I went a little crazy on, but it's okay. I love how it turned out, and I hope you will too. I got this tissue from a craft supply package that was sent to me, and I'm going to cover the whole mannequin head with this same way we did the other one. This is just getting my base. I'm just cutting it into strips or tearing it into small strips. It just makes it go on easier. It doesn't matter that the pattern's going to be all topsy-turvy. That's fine. Just get it on there. And once I get this finished, you'll see it coming up. It's going to be pretty quick. I grabbed some bright ephemera that I had, and I've got a paper pad that I bought this ephemera to go with, and it's been in my stash, and I thought, oh, this is going to be the perfect mannequin head for this. So I grabbed a huge navy butterfly and put it on one eye, and then on the other eye, I decided I had these cute little succulents, and I took the little sticky, they were actually a paper product from Hobby Lobby, and I took the sticky part off and used hot glue to put on the other eye. And then, even though this paper already has all that flowers and pattern all over it, I took these ephemera pieces and just put them all over the whole thing. I'm telling you, like quotes, the vellum with gold, butterflies. It has a ton of butterflies. What do you guys think of this? Isn't that crazy? I think this is going to sell really quick in my booth because it's kind of like a retro 70s in a way. And then I go ahead and add a really good coat of the Mod Podge. Yes, we're still Mod Podging even over the paper. We want this to be sealed up really well. And once this dries, I thought I really want to put a gold sheen on this, something you could see through, because it was a little bright for me. The white was. I wanted to tone it down, but I didn't want to antique it. So I was thinking, I know that Debbie's Design Diary wax is almost a sheer wax with the first coat. So I grabbed that out and put it on it. And this worked perfect to tone down all those white trims around that ephemera and just a little bit of the brightness. I didn't want to tone it down too much, and this just worked great. So think about that. If you want to tone something back, but it's really antiquing wax or gray or brown is not appropriate, try a sheer gold, and it works. It works perfect. I love it. To finish this part of the mannequin head off, I go ahead and use some gold rubber buff to do the lips with. And don't forget, you can put your own color or design on the lips or the eyes of the face itself. This is where your artistic appreciation comes in, so have fun with it. The last step, we are going to add the base, and I have this candle holder or riser, and it's actually a pottery that has sort of a green, almost bubble blown effect on it, and I thought it would just add the messiness and craziness to this one. So we're just using that hot glue and E6000 combo, and then I use some ribbon, of course, and purple pom-pom on this one. We have one more of these mannequin heads coming up, but before we do that one, I've got another project for you. I've had a lot of people ask questions, like Q&A questions, so I thought maybe I would do a live Q&A on here. If you're interested in that, give me a shout out below in the comments and let me know if that's something you would like. Alright, on to project number 4, and remember, technically it's a lot more than that, but project number 4 is really, really cute and super easy. This little stool, I had stenciled a bee on it and white waxed it. It was in, if you guys have been following me for a while, it was in my very first tiny booth. And when I cleaned that booth out, it's been in a stash of stuff. So I just sanded the bee off, and I want to put this beautiful peacock napkin on here because, number one, I love it, and the bee is just not my style anymore. And if we do the Q&A, we're going to talk about some changes since I've started my channel and my vendor booth. So again, let me know about that because there have definitely been changes, and there's going to be more changes, but positive for you all and me, of course. So I just used my glue stick, glued that on, and I used a piece of nonstick paper there, as you saw, just to kind of help smooth this down, and it was almost like I ironed it on. I let it dry, it didn't wrinkle, and then I put a coat of Mod Podge on top, let it dry, and that didn't wrinkle either, and that just kind of gave this little stool an update, so I can put this in my booth and it be more my style and should sell right away because of the beautiful napkin. Now this napkin, I've used it before on my channel. It is from eBay. Our third and final mannequin head is definitely a Podge. I think I said that correct. I have a pile of just labels I've cut up, ephemera from some of decoupage papers that I have in my stash. These have all been in an envelope, and I've done this before. Every time I get some, it's just use up all these extras. See, that one even has a cut mark on the side. I just put them all over the mannequin head, no rhyme or reason, and then I decide what I want to do on top. And so I pulled out my stash of transfers, just like this, like a pile of transfers, and just started putting them all over this thing, just everywhere, until I kind of got it how I liked it. I did pay more attention to the colors and coordinating and things like that on the very top layer. I have found when you start putting things down on these that they quickly come together. As you put one thing down, it sparks ideas, and you grab something else and it just starts falling in pieces, falling in place, or at least that's how I feel. I did leave a little bit more of this in here because I want to show you all. I've had this Eiffel Tower in my stash from, I think it's from the the only brocante transfer that I bought from IOD, which has been a while ago, like a few years. And I thought, you know, I'm just not a Eiffel Tower Paris theme kind of person. So I thought I was going to use it on this, and I was thinking, oh, it's just too tall. But I cut it in pieces, and I just had it going all the way up the back of the neck over the top. So you'll see that coming up, and some of it does get covered up, which is fine. But in the end, I think you'll see in the photos that you can still see the Eiffel Tower parts going all the way up the back of this mannequin head. So really with these, nothing is pretty much off limits, size-wise or color, shape, or form. I want you all to think about Dollar Tree transfers. Do not discount those. I love these letters and numbers that come from Dollar Tree, and they just look so cool in a lot of your either artwork or your crafts or your makeovers. So please don't discount those. I use them all the time. All right, here we are with our finished piece. And I even threw in some Christmas transfers. You can't really tell they're Christmas. I cut them kind of apart and just blended them in to use them because I have a lot that I won't be using in projects. Well, not the way they are in projects. And now we have it dried from our Mod Podge. I've already done one eye and the lips. Although one of the eyes has a butterfly on it, I just felt like this needed something more. It has a lot of transfers. It's very busy. So I'm adding this just repro brooch. It's nothing, you know, costly or anything like that. And I'm going to put it on this one eye. And I pull out some of my, this stuff is called, well, I show it to you coming up, but I've had some questions about it. So look at the lid. It is Cosmic, I forget the last name, but it's, you'll see it right here. And it's kind of a gold, it's Cosmic Shimmer Luna Paste. And it comes in different colors. And I've had this, I've told you all, for a few years. It lasts a really long time. So this kind of gives a silvery gold effect to this. And I love how it looks on here. And I think I ended up putting a little bit of this on that very first mannequin. So let me know what you think about this mannequin. Also, instead of a candle riser, I put this little wrought iron, I don't know if it's a chair or a table, but I've had it in my stash for a while. I actually made it over in one of my first videos and just never did anything with it. I'm going to use this as the base. I just thought this would look a little bit prissy, especially if this is used in like a dressing room or something. Here is all 3 of them. Let me know which one is your favorite, or are these just too over the top for you? I hope you all have enjoyed this video. If you have, give it a like, hit my face, click on it at the end of this video, and it'll automatically subscribe you to this channel, and I'll see you real soon in the next video.